Yeah,
You-
I get it. That makes sense to me, right? But the issue is like whether like so in the age of sail, you had like Nassau, which is like this pirate state that was like this sort of idyllic, principles based thing that started to evolve. Like it didn't grow into the United States of America. Eventually, it collapsed, right? So the thing is like it has to have longevity. Otherwise,
Yes.
effectively, it's just a very convoluted fad. So that's why I don't know whether that's true or it's not true or whether it's survive or it won't survive. But what I try to concentrate is like take away all that stuff. Like what is the underlying like unique affordances of these crypto systems and how might they be derived? And I think that's when I talk about new finance, that's what I want to focus on. It's like forget about whether it might be decentralized or centralized. I don't really care. But what's interesting is like applied cryptography to control risk, super interesting.
Yeah.
Like computable contracts, super interesting. Open APIs, super interesting. Like it may be decentralized or centralized, but these are principles that have been proven out in the Wild West that are definitely going to influence the way the
Yeah,
financial.
and if I build on what you're saying there, you're going, the largest market in all this is going to be this bludge in the middle, this thing where these worlds have to come together because they have
Hmm.
to, and there's so much large market in there, which means you're almost taking the Legos, the composable bits of that, which are you're going founders who understand this,
Yeah.
therefore when this comes, they will be able to navigate it fine.
Yep.
You're then
And,
going
and
product wise, is this a product that can survive if the token gets regulated, if they lose their missionary people? Because if price goes down, they'll become mercenaries, not missionaries.
mhm.
So you're actually just going, I'm taking the building blocks in the largest possible market and I'm
Yep.
making de-risk bets on the things that can actually scale rather than the hype machines that exist now, but may well, because they haven't built on solid foundations, be the thing that works in what will be the biggest market.
That's exactly right. Like that's essentially that's the whole point. But like, importantly, what I'm not going to do there is use my own biases about my assumptions about the future to write off people who have a different perspective on whether the future should be decentralized or centralized. Like to be honest, I don't really know whether it should or shouldn't be decentralized or centralized. Like there's decent arguments to say it should be decentralized because of regulatory capture and because of all the issues that you see in the traditional finance system. Whilst at the same time, there's lots of good arguments for centralizing a system because it gives you mechanisms for capital controls, which stops people money laundering,
You
et
need
cetera, et
both.
cetera, et cetera.
You need that.
Well,
You need them in opposition to each other and
it-
trying to keep someone in chat. It's the same reason why like one party states are an issue and that you need opposition because people will push back on one side or the other, and that sometimes things being decentralized can be an issue and other times things being too centralized can,
you,
and those
that,
forces can create some yin and yang or some balance.
Definitely, and I think to your earlier point, which I totally agree with, about creating competitive pressure on these institutions that are the gatekeepers for these types of domains like finance, creating competitive pressure where society has a venue that they can go to say, actually, your rules are shit. Like we don't like the rules that you're setting. We're going to use this new venue in order to organize ourselves in a way which you can't stop. Right? That is interesting. I mean, it is valuable. Now the question is whether or not I completely agree that there is value. Like I'm not debating that there's value in that competition being there. I guess what I'm saying is that if I had to predict the future, I would predict that despite having kind of done this very beneficial kind of Robin Hood contribution to keeping the institutions honest on an ongoing basis, I just don't know whether all the mainstream activity will sort of stream onto it over time. I think that as the incumbent system, controlled system evolves and opens up to some of these new ideas and new principles, I think it's more than likely that it will just kind of survive by adopting the principles that users really care about and dropping the decentralized stuff because ultimately that is the fundamental antithetical bit is the central operators, the central authorities like the FCA or the SEC or whoever, they want to be able to control risk in the market that they're in charge of, and that is an you can't square that circle. It's just they're totally antithetical with each other.